the panel that I have with me, the four superstars of the analytics world, do deserve that. So, good evening, everyone. We are glad to have this panel here to discuss how we accentuate human experience with AI. And I'm not going to spend too much time introducing once again, since Riaz has done such a great job. So I'll dive deep into it. Matangi, starting with you, if you don't mind, all of you, if you could just explain what are some of the cutting edge work that you're doing, which is a little future forward looking in your own companies and that you're seeing in the field in your own domain that is going to improve customer experience moving forward. Say, if you look at 24, 25, right? How do you think customer experience is going to improve, and what sort of a role is AI and ML going to be playing there?
Thank you, Deepan. So, yeah, hope I'm audible. So, basically, I think from few years from now, one of the key trends that we're going to see, which we're already seeing, is localization and vernacularization of AI. A lot of work that has been done either in the space of NLP or in computer vision, or even in terms of user behavior, has come largely from already the developed markets. But the developing markets like India, Southeast Asia, etc., are going to shape some of the next breakthroughs, so to say, in AI, especially in the area of NLP. For example, we need to have more language recognitions that is very suited to the local climate. User behavior, user experience also has to get customized to some of the power users that are native to the developing markets, right? So those two trends I think would be coming up. And the third one is on personalization. Though whenever we talk about AI, we do talk about NLP, we talk about computer vision, etc. But a lot of the power pack work happens in personalization. So personalization itself is going to take a new journey from recommendations to what I would like to call it as generation, right? From where things are getting recommended based on a user preference, it could get generated, content could generated based on for just a user, right? A book could be created for the user, a movie possibly could get created to the user. So generation with personalization is another trend possibly we'll be seeing in the next few years.
Thanks a lot, Matangi. It would be very, very intriguing to have my profile checked by you to see what kind of a movie would get generated for me. I would think it would. I'm not sure whether it would be suitable for work conditions, but let's see. Saurabh, going over to you, you're in a very interesting space, omni-channel, which is, I think, would have boomed over the past year, 18 months, given the conditions. What are some of the trends you're seeing towards CX, which is going to be AI-driven?
Yeah, thank you very much, Deepan. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. So what we are seeing is, e-commerce started by selling books, which was the most standardized product, and we used to trust it. Now it's getting into personalization, and personalization is to try-ons. Everything at COVID accelerated for our companies like us who are into specs, which is a very touch and feel thing. And what we joke around in our company, it's the thing which you wear more than your undergarments, which are like close to your heart, and you have 3 pairs of it at least. And you don't have specs like this, which so the touch and feel of it is very much required. We used to have a 20% online business contribution in the COVID time. It really spiked up and accelerated, and people were forced to try all the AI technologies like 3D try-ons, AR, VR, AR especially helped us accelerate it. And with the use of and specs buying is not easy because there is a number, there is a size, there is a fitting. So people wanted to try it, and use of the AR technology really helps us. Things on the phone, which are the lighter technologies and all, helps us get the right shape and size. Nykaa is trying on, their companies are trying on how does a nail paint look like, how does a watch look like, so how will a jewelry look like. So maybe you're doing a sari try on. So the whole buying experience, while just recommending a standard product to a person, to a more designer product and something which has a huge catalog, is one thing which we will see changing. quite a bit, and we are betting on that. The spurge of smartphones with like iPhone 10 had a very good chip sensor for AR, and that's what is coming in. So as the adoption crosses the threshold of 10-20%, we will see that thing picking up. So the personalization will get into how I look into things changing quite a bit.
Thanks for that. Saurabh, are there any specific areas that you guys are looking for on the online space and on the offline space? I mean, is Omni looking at some different AI ML technologies for the future as compared to online, or are you really looking at both online and offline as just one extended omni-channel experience for the customer?
So for us, the journey starts from anywhere offline to online and online to offline. What it means is a person looks at the things he wants to buy, goes to the store, gets a eye test done, then still keeps on trying. And he might find a item not in the store to try, but he will go online and buy. So we see a lot of traffic starting online, going offline, and then completing the journey back online. And it's very difficult for us right now to stitch the data across because it's quite complicated with the number of touch points. But that's a huge change which we are seeing. And the first time, if you get the person comfortable in the offline and online journey, is where the stickiness comes in, because the minimum thing you need to do is an eye test, which we have started a home try on. Also, the person, there are about 600 agents who come home and they help you with the eye test. So that's where it's a very, where do you start and where do you complete, you don't know. It's a really omni-channel experience which we are seeing coming up. And once you get into this ecosystem, then you don't need to visit the store at least for 1.5-2 years if your specs gets broken. And especially kids in the digital age, we are seeing that about 50-60% of kids need some kind of eyewear, and my both sons have specs, and they kind of intentionally break it sometime now since they know I'm working here. So
I'm sure that's a strategy by you to drive up GMV, but we'll let that. Javed, coming to you, mobility is one of the, I think, the pioneers in the use of AI and ML, and it's also one of the places in some of the most interesting R&D is happening. Would love for you to share your thoughts on what all you're seeing within Uber and outside in the industry.
Yeah, sure, Dipayan. I think first of all, thanks a lot, Riaz. I think I've never been introduced with such a high octane enthusiasm. I think moving forward, so there are a lot of things which are happening, and really sorry for our background noise. I think my house is very close to a railway track. So I would like to talk about probably some near-term changes which are happening in mobility as a disruption. And I think long-term is one of them is pretty apparent, which is robotaxi. Let's talk about near-term, right? So near-term, one of the big innovation or spread of this practice will happen is mobility as a service. So what it really means. So recently, some of you would have read the news that Uber partnered with Hyderabad Metro Service and public transport to basically integrate booking of metro rail and buses within Uber app itself. Right? So consider a situation where a commuter is booking a cab. Let's say the commuter is trying to travel from his home in Andheri East in Mumbai to his office in somewhere near Churchgate, right? So what he would do is he'll book a cab to Andheri metro station. From Andheri metro station, he'll go to Churchgate metro station, and then he'll book another cab from Churchgate to his office. So basically, there are 3 legs in this entire commute. So in Mars, what would happen is that the user would just book one commute starting from his house to his office. And then this mobility apps will provide various options by optimizing for the cost and time and user experience. And one of the options will be combination of public transport and the taxis. So basically, user can just book that route where he steps out of his home and Uber taxi picks him up. leaves him at the train station exactly at the time when the train is about to leave. He comes at Churchgate station, another Uber taxi is waiting for him. He just gets in, sit in the cab, reaches to office. The benefit here is definitely that customer will save time because he'll not have to book 3 rides separately, like a cab and then a train and then another cab. Time savings, and also the payment is pretty smooth, right? So the money will be deducted right from the phone. So there is no need to pay on a 3 different zones. So this is one move forward that I can see that the industry will move very fast in that direction. The use of AI here is, and AI is a pretty broad term, and sometimes I find it using pretty ambiguously also. So I'll stick to the use of big data in achieving this. So the biggest challenge for the mobility companies is to accurately estimate the optimal route and accurately estimate the time when the driver will pick the rider and etc. Right? And now just consider the complexity when this problem is getting threefold or even multiple fold, because now you have to optimize it across multiple channels for the same ride. So similarly, basically the big data analysis powered by uh, building very high precision model which are able to optimize the routes and predict the different timings is super important to achieve this state.
Cool. Hey, Javed, one of the things which occurred to me as you were talking, right, is that so in that example that you had of a 3-part trip, where there were 2 parts in a cab and 1 part in a public utility.
Yeah.
How would you now 2 parts of it you control as Uber, in the sense that you control the 2 cab parts, right? I think the complexity will be in looking at the middle leg, where you have zero control on the efficiency, on the timeliness of that leg of the transport, whether it is the train or the bus, etc. Right? So how are you, and I think that handling that variation, that is also something that you'll probably have to model out. So how are you guys thinking about that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Dipan. That is probably the biggest challenge when we talk that scenario in Indian context, right? Because in India, we have huge issues about the timeliness of public services. But if you consider developed countries, let's talk about Switzerland. There, I think probably the standard deviation of a train departure time is just within few seconds. It's not even within minutes, right? And the data is also easily available. So I think it's really important that the operations manager tie up and basically under all the regulatory checks. That is another challenges, by the way, right? That the country regulatory checks needs to conform to this kind of model, and then integration of data. And then whenever integration of data happens, there is a security threat. So all these are definitely a concern. But if the proposition is so convincing and basically it is going to add towards better customer experience, cheaper rides, environmental friendly, and it's futuristic, so somehow it will be achieved. That's my belief, I think.
Yeah, great. I'm looking forward to catching a Uber from here to Indiranagar metro station and taking the metro to the airport as and when it happens. I really don't enjoy the 3-hour airport rides. Cool. Matangi, wanted to come to you next. Particularly, like you guys all have very eloquently spoken about the futuristic aspect, how things are going to change, etc. But how do you ground it? How do you ground it in reality? For example, at Myntra, right, we have various similar ideas for changing the way our customers will experience a service. Whenever we go, the first question the CFO will ask is, "Show me the money." Right? Where is the impact in this quarter, next quarter, etc. Most of these initiatives we're talking about are probably capex heavy over the next couple of quarters, and are only and have a limited chance of success. And if that success comes, it's going to be like 3 years, 4 years down the line, right? So how do you convince your internal stakeholders to invest not just money, but also engineering bandwidth? Like at least where I work, engineering bandwidth is probably far more scarce resource than investment dollars are. So how do you go about that whole process of convincing your senior stakeholders that this is worth investing in?
That's a very interesting question, Deepan. So it is certainly unrealistic to start an R&D in a hockey stick growth companies. But however, sometimes the best innovation comes in the tightest timelines, right? So one of the things that I believe is for innovation to happen, start something, put it out there, and possibly the next version of it is where we go power packed. That's one thing. But take one area which we are talking about, right? So we're talking about developing language models for things like Bahasa or some of the vernacular, yeah, language recognition for Indian languages, etc. Now this is no more a problem waiting to be solved. These got to be solved if you have to talk to your end consumers. And as you acquire customers from the bottom of the pyramid, where it's not the urban elite, where the growth is going to come from, where a lot of companies recognize a lot of these growth is going to come from bottom of the pyramid. So it's become a necessity. It's become like do or die, and make this as a key differentiation. So when that happens, if it's a quarter or the H1 goals that has to be met, I think it will be met. I know, there are on-demand companies out there where we are trying drones and things like that for delivery. It's in bits and pieces in terms of research, but I know when it finally becomes a differentiator, that will happen, right? So as long as there is focus and as long as there is the recognition to do something out there for a faster impact, iteratively develop, I think it will happen. And that's how I think some of the big ideas, Saurabh talked about try-ons, etc., right? So all these have happened, somebody taking the big bet, and also happened fairly sure on crunch timelines. Maybe missing them one or two times is fine, but then it eventually gets achieved, because that is about superior customer experience, and driving that customer experience is the need of the hour as we go deeper and deeper into the pyramid, right? So that's the one. Other way to also kind of address this is to create patents, and make that as one of the OKRs of the team at some level, and create interest among the community in the organization to do some level of patent, because at the end of it, that also improves the valuation of the organizations.
Great. I think great point on the patents part, Matangi. If that's made an OKR in itself, I guess it kind of addresses a large part of that question. Saurabh, I want to come to you next. A couple of questions leading off from what Matangi talked about. Number one, organizationally, do you think it makes more sense to take your overall data org and divide it into two? One, doing a run the business kind of the regular day-to-day BAU data work, and another focusing on R&D? Or would you rather have the same team divide their bandwidth between today's problems and tomorrow's problems? What do you think? What is your opinion on what would work better?
So it's an interesting question. Everyone would like to be associated with doing an R&D, if you ask me from a team member's perspective. But when there is fire, and there is always fire in a startup, okay, you will create a nice WhatsApp group and you will have something buzzing 24/7 to do something. So what I would say, definitely having a one team approach is a key thing, okay, but having people focused on R&D is a very important part, because when you have to do a deep work to solve a problem, and then have people rotate around in a short assignments to pick up an R&D project, go deep for 6 months, 12 months, and then come back. Because if you hire a new person, get him into an R&D where it requires a very strong understanding of the business, it's not possible that the person can understand. So there is a lot of institutional understanding and knowledge which is required. So to me, having it part of the one broader team is a key thing. Having people focused on small innovation experiments requires deep focus and allocated time where they are not pulled up into the run-of-the-mill work is something I believe in. But to me, I will actually break up into three things. One is very like fire, somebody is just helping up manage sales and OKR updates and regular reporting, and people have business questions. So that's one part of the team. The second part of the team who are taking short-term bets, say they are upgrading the recommendation engine from point A to point B to point C. And then there are third set of people who are types of projects who are working on long shots where you are failing fast. So to me, from a project perspective, these are three tracks one needs to operate in. from a team perspective, you have to manage the excitement and motivation so that you're not burnt out and the only option is to leave the company, is one thing I would put in, because there is a lot of churn in our industry.
Yeah, I know, very practical words. While it is very well and good to talk about the bright future, I think very practical words of wisdom from Saurabh. Javed, wanted to come to you, and kind of taking a little bit of the while, as I said, it's all very well and good to paint a bright picture, look at the hype. I'm sure there is a lot of roadblocks, internal roadblocks, external roadblocks, regulatory roadblocks, governance issues, internal issues, etc. Right? What are some of the typical roadblocks that you guys have seen in trying to get to a better CX experience using AI/ML, and how have you guys, overcome those roadblocks?
Yeah, I think that's a very relevant question, Dipan, especially in the mobility industry. So in mobility, I think if we talk about the biggest roadblocks, especially which affects customer experience a lot, is safety and fraud. These two are right. So mostly, if the ride forecasting is an important element, but the customer doesn't get so offended or pissed even if the ride is 5 minutes late, right? But if a ride doesn't result in a safety, or if there is a threat about safety, or if there's a fraud and the customer comes to know that, hey, my charge was scored and I did not even take the ride, these are something which can completely churn away your customers. So I think in to address both these kind of problems, the big data and the state of the art technologies have been like extremely useful, because these fraudsters, they're super smart people, right? As we all of know, I'm sure all of us have worked in some or other way in these kind of problems. I'll give you one example. So GPS spoofing is a type of fraud where the fraudster fake a trip. So what they do is this: so there are apps available using which they can show that I have taken a ride from point A to point B, and it does not exist, right? It's virtual. It hasn't happened in the real world, but in Uber's database, it would show up that a ride has happened. And then what they do is they create their own rider account, driver account, and a stolen credit card. And with the combination of that, they fake trips on Uber's world, right? Using Uber account. And Uber ends up paying them both the commission and also the money that it gets from rider's account. So the way we have handled is using geospatial data, right? So when you analyze these fake trips, so you have to take all the three-dimensional data, not just XY, but XYZ of point A to point B. If you analyze only from X and Y perspective, you will see that these trips have happened. But when you add the Z element, which is altitude from Earth's surface, these fake trips appear floating on the air or down below the Earth level, right? Kilometers down below the Earth level. And the real trips, they are very close to the Earth level on the altitude, right? Similarly, you can also model over the speeding. So how quickly they reach from point A to point B. And this is basically a common way of addressing the fraud. But a more advanced way, as I was taking example, that since you asked a question, like what are the new cool way of addressing such kind of frauds and issues? So that was one example I wanted to take for a GPS spoofing.
Thanks, Jared. Great example. So I think it's been a great discussion so far. We've discussed what are some of the initiatives all of us are taking, how are we keeping the teams grounded, how are we getting internal buy-in, and what are some of the roadblocks we're facing as well, right? Wanted to go across the panel now and talk a little bit about really impressive achievements you've seen in the industry, not necessarily in your own org, but in industries and environments and competitors that you really, really admire. Matangi, wanted to ask you, is there a particular competitor or somebody else in your domain that you really admire for the use of AI to enhance service?
One of the things that I do have seen and admire is NPCI for the usage of digital payments. Right? We know it just shifted the industry. We are talking about billions of transactions in a month, and in a country where they said digital penetration wouldn't be there. So it's like happened over the last 3.5 years, and it's a very steep curve. Of course, with some of the players like PhonePe and Google Pay providing the interface, it's been a great adoption, and it's been one transformation that has kind of happened possibly at the Bharat segment. almost most of our payments, be it to domestic help or be it to, a cart, somebody who sells, some vendors who sell things out of their cart. Everybody, has one or the other UPI app there. This is huge transformation. The AI role, of course, is fraud. It has brought in extremely different types of fraud that people could do through these payments, through different collect calls, for example, and that's been, to detect anomaly in these fraud and to the scale that we have not seen frauds earlier, right? Because banking system in India is still not well penetrated enough. Take credit cards, for example. It's one of the poorest market in which credit card has penetrated, but you take UPI, it's like everywhere, right? So, and some of the new patterns, new trends, as well as new opportunities, be it to, lending to some of the segments that we would typically not lend to. Today, data is established. And that's a great starting point for AI to build its base. I think that's one transformation that we have just seen in the past, which has taken e-commerce possibly took 10, 12 years to reach this stage, whereas UPI has been fairly fast, and heavily regulated with a body like RBI at the realm of it. So it's some wonder that I think that I witnessed in the recent past.
Yeah, really, and it is one of the few, I think, technologies which has really reached the next 100 million, right? Everything else,
Yeah.
all of us in B2C in India have been building is just for the India 1 alpha. And UPI truly, I also, and it's as an Indian, it makes me very proud that it's India Stack that has built it out, and it's even Google is using that to sort of, Javed, your thoughts about some of your competitors or somebody in the domain that you really admire for the use of AI.
Yeah, sure, Dipan. So, okay, I'll probably I'll take a step back and I'll start from how this particular feature that I'm going to talk about has evolved over time, right? And I'm talking about help section or a customer service. So basically, as a consumer, I rate a company basis on how good and how fast they treat me when I reach out to them with an issue or a problem, right? So if I remember 10, 12, 15 years back, I used to have a call center number and I would call and wait there for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Then an agent will come and probably solve my problems, right? And then these companies started giving live chat or email ID, and you would send an email. You don't have to wait. Some response will come with a resolution, or you can do a live chat. And then Ubers of the world came in the world, and they implemented something as called as S4. So what happens in S4 is, in their app, let's say if there's a driver canceled on you and your money has been deducted and you want to take it back, right? You go to the app and you will see a different list of reasons, right, why the ride was canceled. So you scan through 10 reasons, and then one of the reason looks relevant to you, and then you click on it, and then it will open again sub reasons. It's like L1, L2, L3. It's a tree structure. And then finally, after going through, let's say 3-4 layers, you'll find a very relevant reason which is applicable for your money deduction. You would select it. An algorithm will run in the background, will use your data for the current trip, and it will decide, okay, whether you deserve a money back or not, and it will give you back if you do immediately, right? You don't have to call anything, mail anything, nothing. Now, if I have to take a step forward on this chain, right? So we all use Facebook, I assume, I hope, believe. It's in the Facebook. So even though I'm not a very regular user of Facebook, I use it hardly, but their help section is like phenomenal. So if you go to their help section, the taxonomy that they have built there is like enormous, right? And you don't have to search through this tree structure. There is a search field. You write just first 2-3 words, and it will predictively forecast what could be the possible reasons you are reaching us, right? And it will show that reason there. You just click it, and it will resolve it, or will send you quick, very, very quick resolution. So, like, I'm amazed by the kind of innovations they are thinking, where the scope is getting narrower and narrower day by day, and still these companies are evolving and making these kind of innovations. So I'm a big fan of that particular feature.
Yeah, just before I go to Saurabh, I also, for a different reason, I'm also a big fan of Facebook and Twitter, simply because they made all their algos, a lot of their algos actually open source. So Facebook has made their time series algo called Profit open source, and a bunch of time series forecasting that we have done, right, is using Prophet, and it's phenomenally accurate as compared to a regular ARIMA model, and it's just open source. So just that spirit of sharing is really, really commendable. What comes to your mind when you think about a competitor who's really, really cracked it in terms of using AI for hacking CA?
So I'll take quick two examples. One is, so anytime somebody is cracking on AI, I would say there is a precursor to it that they do very well on building a very strong product. Okay. So I think so there is always a very strong product, and then there is a very strong application of product. Then they said, okay, you should book online and then come offline, and then you will get it after 1 month. That was totally ridiculous. But this time when I went, they had a full, you use your phone and you check out like that, and then you pay, and then that's done. Okay. So they are really getting into use of tech very heavy. And one of the things which I'm waiting for them to come out is, people love the assistants which you used to have. Okay, people are sports enthusiasts. So if they can crack something, so they have good products, they have good use of tech, but if they get their virtual assistant similar to the way they had their people with sports enthusiasts, they will do a great one. Okay, so I would say the use of tech is great. If they use the AI well, they can get into it. Nobody else can do it other than this, because with Singularity coming in, we will end up watching Netflix or ending playing sports. Okay, what else we will do? Okay, we'll burn all our PF money as well. The second company I would envy is, or I admire is, again, Facebook. Because we all, especially startups, we are hungry for growth. Okay, and growth comes from digital marketing and retargeting and everything. While Google and we all are thinking about attribution models and all of those things, and try to see where you got the money using the UTMs and source codes, and I don't know how, a lot of things. But the richness of data which Facebook is getting in, especially monthly, today we are using Airmeet. Okay, yesterday we all saw that WhatsApp has launched a desktop version of the video chat. Now imagine this type of discussion capturing so nice data for marketing, which the marketers would love, that we are talking about this, and suddenly you all start getting Lenskart's ad, and I start getting Myntra's ad, and we all will be so happy in our companies. But as consumers, we'll be so scared. Okay, somebody is doing a WhatsApp interview, and what can happen. Okay, so the scary part of this is, we are capturing data, we are getting and solving real problems of customer service, shopping experience, marketing. And only thing is, it's like, we have to use the power of data very judiciously, and rather than just having an I agree, having some bit of more privacy aspect to it. So these are two examples which came to my mind, and these help in our professional life and make us scared in our personal.
Thanks, Saurabh. Thanks. That was a very, very engaging answer. And I just hope Mark Zuckerberg's listening in. The amount of love Facebook is getting in this panel is not usual for this day and age. It doesn't get so much. But, thanks, guys. You've been a great panel. Really loved this interaction. I hope we could go on and on, but I think there are other speakers as well, and we have to adhere to the timeline. So thanks all for your time and great answers. Riaz, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dipayan. And this panel has been really wonderful, actually. And I just love the energy between all of you guys. So thank you so much for gracing 3AI Epiphany, and wish you well as well. Okay, that said, time, ladies and gentlemen, for me to just quickly check if you're active as well, as much as the panel was, because are you busy doing something else, or are you glued on? Because I was told nearly 900 people are watching us live across different platforms right now, including here and of course outside on the other platforms as well, LinkedIn, our streaming sites, and so many other things. So it's great to have all of you here. But I want to just quickly check if you are active right now. So I'm going to ask you random questions, and I want you to just type in answers in the chat box, just for me to get a seek of how well tuned you are with what I'm asking right now. Okay, what is 317 minus 13? Type it in the chat box. 317 minus 13. Quickly. I want to see answers coming up. I want to see answers popping in really quick. Yeah. So if you're in the chat box right now, type in what is 317 minus 13. Okay, somebody wrote 353, 317 minus 13. Really, you're not awake. This is why I said, somebody said 340. Come on. 317 minus 13, basic elementary mathematics. Okay. Tell me a language that is also a palindrome. A language that is also a palindrome. Okay, give an example really quick. Don't use AI for this. Use your brain. Don't use AI for this. A language that is also a palindrome. Quickly. Somebody, Kajal is very quick. Kajal was very quick in writing Malayalam. Malayalam is the answer I was looking out for. Okay, my next question. What is the color of a black box? Black box of an airplane. Jaldi fatafat, right? Quickly, I want to see you write. Somebody wrote black. Red. First person to write orange is somebody wrote orange. Yeah, yes. Devashish wrote orange. Okay, the color of a black box of an airplane is orange so that they can spot it from a satellite as well in case of a mishap. God forbid. Okay. Next question, really quick. Okay, how many spokes do we have in the Ashok Chakra? How many spokes do we have in the Ashoka Chakra? Huh? Come on, type in. You must know this. Of course, all Indians must know the answer to this. Yeah, if you don't know, then you should definitely go back and look back to this, because the next time somebody asks you this, you should definitely know the answer to this one, right? And don't ask me what is Ashoka Chakra now, because that's not going to be good for any of us. Okay, Tanmaya Gupta, you were the first one to answer. 24 was the correct answer. 24, and actually, let me tell you, 24 spokes, because every spoke denotes an hour. 24 hours, 24 spokes. Right, and more about that later on a different day. Okay, let me figure out now if you can give me an answer to something that you're crazy about, which is Bollywood. Most of us are crazy about movies. So let me ask you a question. What is the real name of Akshay Kumar? Type in what's the real name of Akshay Kumar. Real name of Akshay Kumar. Jaldi fatafat. Not Amit Bhatia. Rajiv Bhatia, yes. Rajiv Hariom Bhatia is his full name. Okay. So I know a lot of you are writing Rajiv Bhatia's name. Okay, now let me ask you, what is the real name of Salman Khan? What is the real name of Salman Khan? Googly ho gayi na? Yes? Tricky? It's not Salman Khan, Naveen Jyoti Bhatti. No, it's not. It's Abdul Rashid Salim Salman Khan. That's the full name. Can you believe it? That is a trivia. That's an info you got from me. Okay, some of you just got it. Abdul koi keh raha tha. Abdul Rashid Salim Salman Khan. That's the full name of Salman Khan, by the way. But he shortened it to Salman Khan to make it easy. Okay. Anyway, I think now you're awake. Okay. So now let's get back to the topic. That's not what we came here to discuss. That was just a little engaging activity right now. But time for us to move on quickly. So thank you so much to all our speakers. That has been a fabulous session. What we'll do right now is we'll switch over to our next session. And so you don't go anywhere, you don't do anything else, but stick with us. We're just going to switch over to the next session. 15 seconds, I'm back. Continue typing in the chat box. Start networking amongst yourself also, no? Yeah, I'll be back in 15 seconds.